Hello, and welcome to Health Storytellers. This is a space for narratives, not just prescriptions. For understanding, not just instruction. In a world saturated with quick fixes and loud, conflicting advice, we believe the most profound truths about health are found in the gentle unraveling of the human story. We explore the intersection of your biology and your biography, the way your hormones whisper and the way your heart dreams. The science that explains your struggles and the mindset that empowers your transformation. Here, we don't shout about weight loss. We listen for the deeper stories of health. We delve into the latest medical breakthroughs not as isolated miracles, but as chapters in the larger ongoing conversation between who you are and who you are becoming. So find a comfortable space, perhaps pour a cup of tea, and allow yourself to listen to a story that might just sound familiar, to insights that feel less like a diagnosis and more like a key. You are listening to Health Storytellers. Let us begin with a portrait of a modern struggle, one that plays out in countless homes, doctors' offices, and private moments of reflection. Meet Alex. To the outside world, Alex is a composite of success, competent, driven, and capable. But within the confines of his own kitchen, a different narrative unfolds. The upper shelf of his pantry holds a silent testament to a decade of effort, a box of meal replacement bars from 2015, dusty and forgotten. A blender bottle, its plastic slightly cloudy, from a fleeting commitment to high-protein breakfasts. A cookbook on intermittent fasting, its spine uncracked after the first week of enthusiastic adherence. Each object is more than a relic of consumption. It is a bookmark in a story of hope and subsequent resignation. Alex's journey, like that of millions, has been framed by a pervasive and deeply internalized cultural script. This script posits body weight as a simple function of personal virtue. The equation, we are told, is elementary. Consume fewer calories than you expend. Discipline equals results. A lack of results, therefore, can only signal a failure of character, a deficit of willpower, a surfeit of sloth. This narrative is reinforced at every turn. It is in the casual, judgmental language of letting oneself go. It is in the celebratory media coverage of dramatic transformations, where the protagonist's success is invariably attributed to hard work and dedication, implicitly casting those who have not achieved similar results as lazy or lacking in fortitude. It is in the well-intentioned but wounding advice from loved ones. Have you tried just eating less and moving more? For Alex, these external echoes had long since become an internal monologue of self-reproach. Yet, a seismic shift is quietly revolutionizing our scientific understanding and, consequently, the clinical approach to obesity. This shift moves the discourse from a model of moral failing to a model of chronic biological disease. It challenges the foundational calories in, calories out paradigm, not by dismissing its thermodynamic truth, but by revealing its profound inadequacy in describing the human experience. The body is not a passive furnace. It is a dynamic, reactive ecosystem with sophisticated homeostatic mechanisms designed for one paramount evolutionary purpose: survival. At the core of this new understanding is the concept of the defended set point. Imagine your brain, specifically a region called the hypothalamus, as the chief operating officer of a complex energy balance corporation. It operates not on abstract goals of aesthetics, but on biological imperatives. It establishes a preferred range for your body's energy stores, your set point, and deploys a powerful array of hormonal and neurological tools to defend it. When you consciously reduce calorie intake to lose weight, your brain does not interpret this as a positive step toward health. It perceives it as a state of incipient starvation, a threat to survival. In response, it executes a multifaceted defense strategy. Levels of ghrelin, the hunger hormone, increase, sending persistent, powerful signals to seek food. Simultaneously, levels of leptin, the hormone secreted by fat cells to signal sufficiency, decrease. This dual hormonal shift creates a potent biological impetus to eat. But the defense does not stop there. The body's metabolism, its resting energy expenditure, can downregulate in an effort to conserve precious fuel. Even subconscious movements, known as non-exercise activity thermogenesis, NE8, may diminish. The body, in essence, becomes more efficient, burning fewer calories to perform the same tasks, all while the conscious mind is bombarded with intensified hunger. This is not a failure of will. This is a triumph of biology. It is the ancient reptilian part of the brain performing its fundamental duty with exquisite, frustrating efficiency. The feeling of battling one's own body is not an illusion. It is a physiological reality. The deck is, in fact, stacked against sustained weight loss because the body interprets that loss as a crisis. Recognizing this biological reality is the essential turning point. It is the moment of profound cognitive liberation. It is the shift from asking, "Why am I so weak?" to inquiring, "What is my unique physiology doing and why?" It replaces shame with scientific curiosity. It externalizes the problem from the realm of character into the realm of pathophysiology. This reframing is not an attempt to absolve personal responsibility. Rather, it redefines what responsibility entails. It moves the focus from fighting against an immutable biological tide to seeking ways to understand and modulate that tide through informed, multifaceted strategies. This turning point marks the end of an era defined by simplistic blame and the beginning of a more nuanced, compassionate, and effective chapter in the story of human health. It opens the door to interventions that respect the complexity of the human organism, setting the stage for exploring the scientific tools and mindset shifts that constitute the future of sustainable treatment. The journey ahead is not about overpowering the body's defenses, but about learning to work in concert with its deepest rhythms, transforming a battle into a partnership. To understand the future of obesity treatment, one must first appreciate the exquisite and complex biological machinery it seeks to engage. Hunger is not a monolithic sensation, a simple, empty feeling in the stomach. It is better understood as the final, conscious output of a vast, subconscious regulatory system, a symphony of chemical signals and neural circuits with a single, primal directive to ensure energy homeostasis and survival. At the helm of this system sits the hypothalamus, a small but mighty structure deep within the brain. Think of it as mission control for energy balance. It does not operate in isolation. It is a listening post, constantly receiving and interpreting a flood of hormonal telegrams from the periphery, from the gut, the pancreas, and the adipose tissue itself. These hormones are the vocabulary of the body's energy status, and their messages are unambiguous. Ghrelin, often termed the hunger hormone, is produced primarily in the stomach. Its levels rise sharply in anticipation of meals and during periods of caloric deficit. It is the chemical embodiment of appetite, binding to receptors in the hypothalamus to powerfully stimulate hunger and food-seeking behavior. It is the body's proactive signal, urging action before an energy shortfall becomes critical. In contrast, leptin is the hormone of sufficiency. Secreted by white adipose tissue, fat cells, in proportion to their size, it communicates long-term energy reserves to the brain. High leptin levels signal that fuel stores are ample, prompting the hypothalamus to suppress appetite and increase energy expenditure. It is the feedback loop of abundance. However, in a state of obesity, a paradoxical and critical phenomenon often occurs: leptin resistance. Despite high circulating levels of leptin, the brain fails to respond appropriately to its signal. The hypothalamic listening post becomes deaf to the message of fullness, leaving the drive to eat unchecked even in the presence of substantial energy stores. This resistance is a cornerstone of the biological defense of an elevated weight set point. This brings us to a pivotal actor in the modern therapeutic story: glucagon-like peptide 1, GLP-1. This hormone is part of a family known as incretins, released from endocrine cells in the intestinal lining in response to nutrient ingestion. Its functions are multifaceted and elegantly coordinated. In the pancreas, it stimulates insulin secretion and suppresses glucagon release, finely tuning blood glucose control. In the stomach, it delays gastric emptying, creating a prolonged physical sensation of fullness. But its most significant role in the context of appetite regulation occurs in the brain. Upon release, GLP-1 travels to and binds with specific receptors in key areas, including the hypothalamus and the brainstem. Here, it delivers a potent and direct satiety signal. It effectively tells the brain's command center, nutrients are arriving, the energy intake process is complete, you may cease the drive to eat. It is a powerful termination signal for a meal and a dampener of between-meal hunger. However, endogenous GLP-1 is rapidly degraded by an enzyme called dipeptidyl peptidase 4, DPP4, giving it a very short half-life in circulation. Its satiety signal, while potent, is fleeting. For many individuals, this intricate neuroendocrine orchestra is playing a composition skewed toward weight gain and maintenance. The leptin signal may be ignored. The ghrelin crescendo may be overly pronounced and persistent. The GLP-1 cadence may be too brief to effectively counterbalance the other drives. In such a physiological state, the experience of hunger is not a mild reminder to eat. It is a compelling, biologically mandated imperative. The constant mental preoccupation with food, the struggle to feel satisfied by normal portions, and the powerful pull towards highly palatable, energy-dense foods are not indices of poor discipline. They are the conscious manifestations of a survival biology, operating on a different, more urgent frequency. This scientific perspective is transformative. It moves the discussion from the domain of personal choice to the domain of neuroendocrinology and physiology. It reframes obesity not as a behavioral disorder, but as a disorder of the biological systems that regulate energy homeostasis. The individual is not battling a weak character, but a robust, albeit dysregulated, set of ancient biological defenses. Understanding this is not to surrender agency, but to precisely identify the nature of the challenge. It leads to the pivotal question that defines the next frontier of treatment. If the body's own satiety signals are insufficient or unheard, can we develop therapeutic interventions that amplify them? Can we provide a clearer, more sustained signal to the hypothalamic command center, thereby recalibrating the entire system? The answer to this question lies at the heart of the current medical revolution, moving us from merely understanding the symphony of hunger to learning how to conduct it. The translation of the scientific principles governing hunger and satiety into tangible clinical tools represents a watershed moment in the chronic disease management of obesity. This revolution is centered on a class of pharmaceuticals known as GLP-1 receptor agonists, GLP-1 RAs. These are not novel appetite suppressants in the traditional stimulant-based sense, which often targeted neurotransmitters broadly and came with significant side effect profiles. Instead, they represent a paradigm of targeted hormonal therapy. Molecules like semaglutide and tirzepatide are engineered to be structurally analogous to the endogenous GLP-1 hormone, but with a critical modification. They are resistant to rapid degradation by the DPP-4 enzyme. This pharmacological resilience allows them to persist in the circulation, providing a sustained and potent activation of GLP-1 receptors throughout the body. The physiological effects are a direct amplification of the hormone's natural roles. In the gastrointestinal tract, they profoundly slow gastric emptying. This is not a minor change in digestion speed. It creates a lasting physical sensation of fullness and early satiation, often rendering the consumption of large portions not just undesirable, but physically uncomfortable. In the pancreas, they restore a more physiological insulin response and suppress inappropriate glucagon secretion, offering powerful glycemic control, which is why their initial approval and fame came in the realm of type 2 diabetes management. Most significantly for weight regulation, their action on the central nervous system is multifaceted. By activating receptors in the hypothalamus and brainstem, they directly inhibit the appetite-stimulating neurons, e.g., neuropeptide YAARP neurons, while stimulating the pro-satiety pathways, e.g., POMC neurons. Furthermore, emerging research suggests they influence higher brain centers, including the mesolimbic dopamine system, which governs reward and motivation. This may attenuate the compulsive food noise, the constant mental preoccupation with palatable, high-calorie foods that many individuals report. The clinical trial data are unequivocal and groundbreaking. In rigorous, placebo-controlled studies, these agents have demonstrated an ability to produce an average weight reduction of 15% to 20% or more, an efficacy threshold previously attainable only through metabolic and bariatric surgery. Beyond the scale, the metabolic improvements are profound. Significant reductions in HbA1c, blood pressure, inflammation, and markers of cardiovascular risk. For many patients, the experience is transformative. The relentless physiological drive to eat softens, creating what is often described as a quieting of the mind around food. This provides a previously unavailable psychological space to make different choices. However, to view this revolution through a lens of unalloyed triumph would be a disservice to its complexity and to the individuals it seeks to help. These medications are powerful biological tools, and with that power comes a necessity for nuanced understanding, realistic expectation, and rigorous responsibility. Firstly, they are not inert. Their mechanism of action, slowing the digestive tract and signaling directly to brainstem areas involved in nausea, means that gastrointestinal side effects are common, particularly during dose escalation. Nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and constipation are frequently reported. While these often subside with time and careful management, their presence is a tangible reminder that we are intervening in core homeostatic systems. Their use also necessitates consideration of other potential risks, including the rare but serious risk of medullary thyroid cancer in susceptible individuals and pancreatitis. Secondly, the issue of sustainability and access is paramount. Obesity is a chronic, relapsing condition. The biological defenses that these medications quell do not disappear. They are temporarily quieted. For most individuals, discontinuing the medication leads to a gradual return of hunger and, consequently, weight regain. This necessitates a framework of long-term, perhaps indefinite, pharmacological management, akin to the treatment of hypertension or dyslipidemia. This reality collides with the challenges of high costs, insurance coverage denials, and supply chain limitations, creating significant barriers to equitable and sustained care. This leads to the most critical point of all, the conceptual hazard of viewing these medications as a passive, standalone solution. The greatest risk of this revolution is fostering a therapeutic passivity. The medication can create a powerful biological opportunity, a window of reduced hunger and diminished food preoccupation. But it does not, and cannot, automatically instill the knowledge, skills, or mindset required for lasting health. It quiets the physiological static, but it does not write the new script for living. If the underlying behavioral patterns, emotional eating, sedentary habits, poor nutritional literacy, and the psychological relationships with food, body, and self remain unaddressed, the foundation for long-term success remains perilously fragile. The medication may enable weight loss, but without concurrent psychological and behavioral work, it may not enable a healthier life. The individual may find themselves at a lower weight, but still grappling with the same dysfunctional relationships and habits, now in a body their mind may not yet recognize or accept. The pharmacotherapy addresses the biology of the defended set point. It does not address the biography, the lifetime of experiences, habits, and beliefs woven around it. Therefore, the responsible and optimal use of these revolutionary tools exists not in isolation, but as the most potent component of a comprehensive therapeutic triad. They provide the biological leverage. What one does with that leverage, the conscious construction of a sustainable lifestyle, a resilient mindset, and a supportive environment, constitutes the equally vital human work of transformation. The medication can open a door to a different future, but walking through it and building a home on the other side is a journey that remains profoundly personal and active. This integration of biological intervention with behavioral and psychological evolution marks the true frontier of effective, humane, and lasting treatment. The introduction of pharmacological tools that effectively modulate appetite creates a novel and profound psychological landscape. For the first time, many individuals experience a significant reduction in the physiological urgency that has dictated their relationship with food for years or even decades. This quieting of the biological imperative is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of a new, more complex phase. It opens a space of potential, a space previously filled by the struggle itself, and presents a critical question. What will fill this space? This phase requires a deliberate and compassionate metamorphosis of mindset, shifting from a focus on weight loss as an external goal to the cultivation of health as an internalized identity. The first opportunity lies in relearning the act of eating itself. With the constant drumbeat of hunger subdued, one can engage in mindful and intentional eating. This is the practice of bringing non-judgmental awareness to the sensory experience of food, its taste, texture, and aroma, and to the body's internal cues of hunger and satiety. It is the difference between eating an entire bag of chips while distracted by a screen and consciously choosing to enjoy a measured portion, savoring each bite, and noticing the point at which satisfaction is reached. The medication provides the physiological stability that makes this awareness possible, The individual must then cultivate the skill. This practice disrupts automatic, habitual eating patterns and rebuilds a relationship with food based on nourishment and pleasure rather than compulsion or coping. Concurrently, this new landscape allows for a radical redefinition of physical activity. Exercise must be liberated from its historical role as a punitive calorie-burning transaction, a painful debt paid for dietary indiscretion. The goal becomes movement for meaning and mastery. This involves exploring physical activities not for their metabolic cost, but for the intrinsic rewards they offer. The clarity of mind from a brisk walk in nature, the sense of accomplishment from lifting a slightly heavier weight, the joy of mobility that allows one to play freely with children or grandchildren. The focus shifts from burning off to building up, building strength, endurance, resilience, and a sense of bodily competence. When movement is decoupled from punishment and connected to positive affect and self-efficacy, it becomes sustainable. This metamorphosis also demands an unflinching yet compassionate engagement with the psychosocial and emotional drivers of behavior. For many, eating has served functions far beyond nutrition. It has been a source of comfort in distress, a reward for achievement, a means of numbing uncomfortable emotions, or a response to boredom or fatigue. The medication may remove the acute hunger, but it does not erase these learned associations or address the underlying emotional states. This is the realm of cognitive behavioral strategies, dialectical behavior therapy skills, or therapeutic exploration. It involves developing a toolkit for emotional regulation that does not default to food. Practices such as journaling, meditation, reaching out for social connection, or engaging in a creative hobby. It requires identifying one's personal triggers and constructing alternative, healthier pathways of response. Underpinning all of this work is the foundational practice of radical self-compassion. This involves consciously dismantling the internalized narrative of shame, blame, and failure that has often accumulated over years. It means speaking to oneself with the kindness, patience, and encouragement one would offer a dear friend embarking on a difficult challenge. It requires recognizing that setbacks are not moral failures, but data points, offering information for adjustment rather than reasons for abandonment. Self-compassion provides the psychological safety necessary to take risks, to learn, and to persist without the debilitating weight of self-criticism. Ultimately, this mindset shift is about connecting daily choices to a deeper intrinsic why. The goal transcends a number on a scale. It becomes about aligning actions with core values: vitality, longevity, presence, or autonomy. One chooses the nourishing meal not because a diet mandates it, but because it fuels the energy needed for a meaningful project. One goes for the walk not to earn calories, but to clear the mind for better decision-making, or to honor the body's need for movement. This values-based alignment transforms health behaviors from externally imposed chores into expressions of self-care and personal integrity. The pharmacological intervention provides a unique neurochemical opportunity. It can lower the biological barriers that made these psychological and behavioral changes feel insurmountable. However, it cannot automate the process. The medication supports the biology. The mindset crafts the life. This metamorphosis, from a state of constant biological negotiation to one of conscious, value-driven construction, is the essential human work that determines whether a medical treatment becomes a lasting transformation. It is the deliberate, often quiet process of building a life so rich, engaged, and fulfilling that the effort to sustain its physical vessel feels not like a sacrifice, but like a natural and worthy investment. The ultimate measure of any therapeutic intervention for a chronic condition is not its initial impact, but its sustainability. The dramatic weight loss facilitated by new pharmacological tools captures attention, but it is merely the opening scene of a much longer narrative. The true story unfolds in the months and years that follow, in the quiet, daily reaffirmation of health. This final chapter, therefore, moves beyond the acute phase of transformation to consider the long arc of well-being, requiring a fundamental redefinition of success and a strategic framework for preservation. Success, in the long-term management of obesity, must be decoupled from the exclusive tyranny of the scale. A singular focus on weight fosters a brittle, binary mindset where any fluctuation is perceived as failure, triggering cycles of discouragement and abandonment. A more resilient and holistic definition embraces multidimensional health metrics. These are the non-scale victories that collectively signify a profound systemic shift. The normalization of blood pressure and glycemic markers, improved lipid profiles, reduced inflammation measured by markers like C-reactive protein, and increased cardiorespiratory fitness. It includes functional milestones, the ability to walk a mile without pain, to climb stairs without breathlessness, to engage in recreational activities with family, or to experience restorative sleep. It encompasses vital psychosocial gains, the diminishment of weight-related stigma in one's own mind, the expanded choice in clothing, the increased willingness to engage in social activities, and the liberation from constant mental preoccupation with food. These metrics paint a portrait of health that is rich, nuanced, and inherently sustainable because it is tied to quality of life, not just a numerical abstraction. Operating within this redefined framework necessitates a deliberate and proactive strategy for the maintenance phase. This is a distinct psychological and behavioral territory, often more challenging than the initial period of weight loss. The novelty has faded, and the vigilance required can be taxing. For individuals utilizing GLP-1 receptor agonists, this phase involves collaborative planning with healthcare providers. It may entail finding the lowest effective dose that sustains the biological benefits while managing side effects and cost, a concept known as dose optimization. It requires the continued, vigilant practice of the mindset and behavioral skills cultivated earlier: mindful eating, value-driven movement, and emotional regulation. The maintenance phase is not a passive state of rest. It is an active state of dynamic equilibrium, requiring ongoing attention and adjustment. Crucially, this long-term view must also prepare for potential transitions, including the possibility of discontinuing medication. A responsible treatment paradigm does not ignore this eventuality, but plans for it. This involves solidifying lifestyle architecture so robust that it can provide greater support if pharmacological support is reduced or withdrawn. It means having established dietary patterns, exercise routines, and coping mechanisms so ingrained that they can withstand the gradual return of physiological hunger signals. This preparation demystifies the process and empowers the individual, reducing the fear that their health is entirely contingent on a single intervention. The future of obesity treatment, as illuminated by this comprehensive journey, is decidedly integrative. It rejects false dichotomies, medicine versus willpower, biology versus behavior. Instead, it proposes a synergistic triad as the standard of care. The first pillar is advanced, physiology-informed pharmacotherapy, which respectfully addresses the dysregulated biological systems defending an elevated set point. The second is psychologically grounded behavior therapy, which builds the skills, habits, and resilient mindset necessary for navigating the modern food environment and building a fulfilling life. The third, and the glue that holds it all together, is continuous, compassionate clinical care. This involves a therapeutic alliance with providers who offer not just prescription management, but also ongoing coaching, accountability, and support, recognizing obesity as a complex chronic disease requiring long-term partnership. This integrative model represents a maturation in our approach. It moves from episodic, weight-centric interventions to continuous, health-centric care. It acknowledges that the journey does not end at a target weight, but evolves into a sustained practice of living well. The goal is to foster not just weight stability, but vitality and autonomy. In conclusion, the narrative of obesity treatment is being rewritten from a story of individual failing to one of biological complexity, from a quest for thinness to a pursuit of holistic health. It is a story that validates the struggle through science and offers hope through a multifaceted array of tools. It recognizes that lasting change is not found in a single molecule or a burst of willpower, but in the thoughtful, patient integration of medical innovation, psychological growth, and consistent self-compassion. The long arc bends not toward a number, but toward a life experienced with greater energy, presence, and possibility. It is a testament to the potential of working with our humanity, our intricate biology, our learned behaviors, and our enduring capacity for change, to craft a sustainable state of well-being. The final measure of success is not how much weight was lost, but how fully one lives in the years that were gained. Thank you for listening to this story on Health Storytellers. If this narrative resonated with you, if it sparked a question or a sense of hope, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. In the world of health, shared understanding is the first step toward healing. We invite you to subscribe and tap the notification bell. In our coming narratives, we will delve deeper into the science of habit formation, the art of mindful living, and the many other pathways to human flourishing. We encourage you to continue this conversation with your own healthcare provider to be the author of your unique health journey with curiosity and compassion. Remember, your health is not a headline. It is a story, and every story deserves to be told and to be heard with grace. Until next time, this is Health Storytellers. Be well.